Hello, I'm Cheryl Hawkins. Welcome to Solutions, the series that highlights the incredible work that nonprofits do every day to solve problems in our communities. On this edition of Solutions, our focus is on Jubilee Association of Maryland, an organization in Montgomery County that helps adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities live their best lives. Here's a little more about Jubilee and what they do. Let's take a look.
My name is Steve Keener. I'm the Executive Director for Jubilee Association of Maryland. Jubilee is a nonprofit organization. We support adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities so they can live independently in their homes here in Montgomery County. Jubilee Association of Maryland was started by Hyattsville Mennonite Church in 1978. There were a group of people at the church. Some of them were volunteering at an institution called Forest Haven. Forest Haven was a place, like many institutions at the time, where people experienced isolation, abuse, and neglect. The people that were going to Hyattsville Mennonite wanted to do things differently and help people live independently in the community. So they got together with some other disability professionals, some families of people with disabilities, and they started Jubilee.
My name is Ann Confa. I'm a direct support professional with Jubilee Association of Maryland for the past 10 years. Jubilee's mission is to create a society or a community where people with disabilities and intellectual development can have as equal rights as other people living around their communities, can live their normal life as much as they can, and live their best lives during that time. I thought the work was very hard because I didn't have the tools possible to do the work until Jubilee started this development, like developing staff to work. We did recertification like DSP, which has helped me a lot, and that is why I'm continuing to be in Jubilee, because now I can do my work better because I'm well supported.
This is the best job I've ever had. I get to work alongside some amazing people who are super engaged, and I'm inspired constantly by the people that we support in the way that they're living life to the fullest, and by the direct support professionals who are supporting them, who sacrifice a lot, give so much, because for them it's more than a job. For many people this is more like a sacred calling.
And now joining me in studio is Steve Keener, Executive Director of Jubilee. Steve, welcome to Solutions.
Cheryl, so good to be here.
Good to have you here. Let's start by talking a little bit more about Jubilee and its beginnings. We addressed a little bit in that video, but it started in 1978, founded by members of a Mennonite church. So Jubilee is close to 50 years old.
We are. Yes.
Wow. And how many people did Jubilee serve in those early days, and how many do you serve today?
Well, in early 1978, we started serving 2 people, and that started by a couple of people who were volunteering at a place called Forest Haven, and they were also going to Hyattsville Mennonite Church. Now, Forest Haven, if you haven't heard of it, was the institution for people with disabilities from the District of Columbia. And like a lot of the institutions at the time, it was a place where people were isolated, abused, neglected. I've known people who lived at Forest Haven, and they described it as being like living in a prison. And so these volunteers who were going to Forest Haven during the day and then coming to church at Hyattsville Mennonite Church said, you know, we'd like to help people be able to live in the community like we do, instead of in this place. And so they got together with some people from the church, and they started a service project that ended up inviting 2 men with disabilities in early 1978 to move into a home on a street in Silver Spring.
Wow.
And so they started out with 2 men, and today we're serving over 200 people across Montgomery County.
Wow. So talk about the people that you serve and their needs, and explain what developmental and intellectual disabilities are.
Intellectual or developmental disability is a disability like autism or Down syndrome, where people just need a little bit more help with their daily lives. And typically the people that we're supporting were diagnosed with those disabilities at a young age. and they've been getting help in school, and then as an adult, they might need a little bit more help to be able to live independently in the community.
You have such a calming personality.
Oh,
Tell me
thank
a
you.
little bit about you, your background. How did
Yeah.
you come to Jubilee?
Well, I got started in the disability world when I was pretty young, and I was in my early 20s. I had just gotten married. My wife and I were sitting in church one Sunday, and a friend of ours in our church stood up during sharing time, and he was a man with Down syndrome. He was sharing how his friends Matt and Stephen needed new live-in caregivers. And I was drawn into this, and I leaned over to my wife, and as persuasively as I could, I said, "Hey, why don't we do that? Let's move in with Matt and Stephen." So, and she said yes. About a month later, we moved in with them, and we lived like a family. We cooked and ate meals together. We did chores together. We laughed. We danced. Those were in a lot of ways simpler times than we have now. But I came into that situation thinking that I wanted to help them, and I think we did that. But at the same time, what was surprising to me was how much they helped me. And they brought a new tenderness into my life. They made me feel less lonely. And it was transformative for me. And I have experienced that kind of belonging among people with disabilities for my whole life, really. And that's been what got me into doing this kind of work.
I love it. And it sounded like you said, like you were surprised when she said yes.
Well, it was kind of a big ask. We had been married for a year at that point. I said, "Hey, why don't we move in with these guys?" And,
what a beautiful spirit you both have to do that. You brought up that word lonely, that you were lonely, and I was going to ask you about it a little later, but since you brought it up, I want to address that. You talk about loneliness as being an issue for some of the people you serve. And I was doing a little bit of research on that, and according to the U.S. Surgeon General, America has a loneliness epidemic. So in a country that has a total of over 340 million people living here, why are we so lonely, and how prevalent of an issue is it for the people you serve?
Well, I think we're all experiencing it, right? I mean, I think it's one of the biggest struggles that we have in the world that we're living in now is how to connect with other people and, find connection with our communities, and that's especially acute for people with developmental disabilities. From early age, oftentimes, it's just a little bit more difficult for them to connect. And that continues on into adulthood. So all of the reports you hear about our society being lonely just amplify that a little bit more for people with disabilities. But at the same time, they have so much to offer around in the areas of friendship and connection and honesty, spontaneity. It's a place when you're in a community with people with disabilities, you can really be yourself like nowhere else. And so there's a real need and also real opportunity for people to find connection with people with disabilities. And so I've been part of some great communities, including at Jubilee, where we get together, we can be ourselves, and we have a great time together, and we relieve each other's loneliness. So, there's a big need there, but there's also a big opportunity.
And I suspect that technology has a little bit to do with us not connecting so much with each other. So much, but we won't get into that too deeply. So let's talk a little bit about the programs and services that you support. Jubilee offers residential support services and housing support services. Tell us about those and what are the differences. And we've struggled with this because residential and housing sound like the same things, but they're different things to us, so I'll explain them a little bit. Residential services just means that we support people in their homes and in the community to live independently. So some people might need a few hours a week of support, and other people need 24/7 support to be able to, get dressed, get fed, get to the doctor, get your medications, help you get to work, all of those things.
that people just need some support to be able to live independently. And I mean, you're not living with mom and dad at age, age 50 or 60. You're living on your own, just like the rest of us, right? So that's residential services.
Okay.
Most of the people that work for Jubilee, we've almost 500 employees. Most of them are direct support professionals.
Okay.
And those are the people that provide that 24/7 support to people. And then housing support services is something we just started 3 years ago. It means that we're helping people find affordable housing and keep affordable housing. So all of the things, I don't know if you know this, but affordable housing is incredibly complex, right?
Absolutely.
So it involves helping people apply for housing vouchers that give them a subsidy to help pay the rent. It involves helping people apply to apartments, find the right apartment, budget to have the apartment, and then have a good relationship with your landlord once you've moved in. How do you pay for your utilities? All of those things that come with being a tenant and having your own home.
Now, are these homes that you're helping them find in a community that's designed for them? Are they in the general community? And do you have to educate the landlord on who these people are?
Well, we part of the the movement from being in institutions back in the 70s and 80s to being fully integrated into the community is helping people be able to live in apartments and homes just like everybody else lives in. Okay, so when we're helping people find an apartment or a home, it's right in there with the rest of the apartments and homes.
Gotcha.
And yes, we do work closely with landlords to help them understand the needs of the people that are living there and helping the people that are living there navigate what it means to be living in that apartment complex. So we've got tons of people living all up and down the corridor where Bethesda, Rockville. There's lots of apartments where people are living in there, and then in homes all over Montgomery County.
And I would think it's helpful to the people you support with a landlord to know that there's an organization like Jubilee that's supporting these people. To get these places.
Yeah. And with a little bit of help, really people with all kinds of needs can live anywhere.
Yes, how about that? So you also offer a community engagement program. Tell me about that. How do you engage the community with these people's lives and vice versa? Right.
Well, we know that our work is much more than making sure people have housing and are taken care of. People also need help with having, addressing their loneliness and not feeling isolated. No matter where you live, you can feel isolated. So it's really important to help people connect with their community. A few years ago, we decided we needed some dedicated staff people, that it was their job to make sure that people had vibrant social lives. So we do this in a few ways. Our community engagement department helps we plan lots of activities. In the last year, we had 170 social activities that we planned that were with people we support and their friends and family. And then in addition to that, they go and they check in on people one-on-one and just say, what are your goals? Who would you like to be spending time with right now? How can we help you meet your goals so that you're having the kind of social life that you want to have? It's pretty great, right?
Yes,
Wouldn't you like to have something like that?
Yes, I would. now.
Yeah.
So how do people apply for your services? And are there prerequisites?
Sure. So the way that people apply, you won't be surprised, it's on our website. And there's a short application for people to apply for services. And then as we're considering people for services, we want to make sure we can do it responsibly and meet people's needs. So there is then a more extensive conversation about people's needs to make sure that we can do that. And the prerequisites are you have to have an intellectual or developmental disability. You have to be over 21, so we just serve adults. There are other organizations that do more than that, but we're just adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then all the people that we serve are getting services from the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Administration. That's the Medicaid Services for Home and Community-Based Services program that everyone that we support is part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a success story that touches your heart that you
got
could share?
tons of them. Let me tell you a story about Melissa Corey. Melissa's one of the people that we support. And when she came to us, soon after time she came to us, she was having just a really hard time with being afraid of standing up. And she was physically able to do it. But she had so much fear that she ended up, even though she was physically able to stand, she ended up in a wheelchair because of this fear, inexplicable fear. So working alongside her family and with our direct support professionals, she was able to get some psychological support and start doing some physical therapy. And over a series of months, couple of years, she went from being a very fearful person to being somebody who could stand on her own, walk on her own, and tell you how so proud she is of herself. And today she loves to tell her story, and she loves to say how she's not afraid anymore.
Wow.
And that's just one of many stories. With a little bit of support, people can do things you'd never believe they can do.
Absolutely. And with an organization like Jubilee, wow, sky's the limit. Steve, thank you so very much for being here with us. The work you do is incredible. Thank you for doing it.
My pleasure. So good to be here. Thank you.
Yes. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'll be joined by Melanie Moore, the Academy Program Director at Jubilee. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Solutions.
I'm Kate Whitmore. I'm 66 years old. My mom went to mental hospital to get some help.
I'm Pat. I met Katie when she was about 30 at the Gaithersburg Soup Kitchen. Kate told me a man had convinced her to be his girlfriend. He wound up stealing her Social Security. He was violent, he beat her. Getting Kate safely into housing and supports took a coordinated effort between the Soup Kitchen, Adult Protective Services, Jubilee, and the police. Now you're making me age. You're always going to be family, okay? You're always going to be family.
Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome. Kate's been a diamond in the rough, but she is sparkling now.
Welcome back. I'm Cheryl Hawkins. You're watching Solutions, the series that highlights the great work that nonprofits do in our communities. On this episode, we are learning about Jubilee Association of Maryland, an organization that supports adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities in Montgomery County. Joining me on this segment is Melanie Moore, the Academy Program Director at Jubilee. Melanie, welcome to Solutions.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. So tell me about the Academy. Who had the idea for it? When did it get started? And who does the Academy serve?
So Steve Keener, our executive director, and I love to joke that we kind of both had the same idea at the same time, but we didn't tell each other right away. And then once we realized we had the same idea, and we got the wonderful opportunity from the William S. Abel Foundation to have a grant that would support the work, we decided to go for it. So we opened our doors November 1st, 2024. So we've been open for about 6 months now. Okay. And our mission is to serve really the whole IDD community, but especially everyone in the workforce that's supporting the folks out there in the community.
In IDD?
Intellectual and developmental disabilities,
of
yes.
Course. Yes. So what are the types of courses you offer at the Academy? And how long are they?
Well, we have everything from a 2-day seminar that is focused on how we can be more mindful, more present, and more in partnership with each other, to a 2-hour seminar that is about how we can communicate with each other when emotions are high. So it really kind of spans that very different time frames there. We have 7 classes in total. Some of them are very skills-based, such as CPR first aid, and then we have the seminar classes, which I just mentioned 2 of, that are a little bit more advanced and a little bit more focused on how do we get some of the soft skills that make us really good at the work that we all do.
And are the classes in person, virtual, or mixed?
We are all brick and mortar. They are all in person.
Great. I know they love that. So some of your courses sound unique to me. Can you expand on a few, like MANT? What is that?
Yeah, MANT is often the most confusing for folks because the title doesn't really tell you what it is. It is the MANT system, and it is a crisis prevention and intervention system that is very holistic and very centered in human dignity and partnership, which I think is unique in that field of crisis prevention and intervention. It's required by the state of Maryland for everyone in our field. But despite being this kind of required crisis class, it's really fun and informative, and it's actually really a joy to teach.
And what does MANT, M-A-N-D-T, what is MANT? Does it stand for something?
No, that is the number one question, though. It is someone's last name, so it's the founder of the company and the original creator of the system.
Got you. So Coach Approach, I like the title of that course. What does that teach? So
that's that 2-day seminar that I mentioned. It was created by the Coach Approach partners, and it's actually a homegrown program here within Maryland. And again, it's focused on how can we show up for each other with presence, so without distractions and with real human connection, and then how can we support each other once we've established that presence. So instead of charging in and fixing a problem for someone, which is, my solution to that problem comes with my own biases, my own idea of how we should solve it. It's meeting that person and empowering them to define their own solution, which is a huge game changer in our field, where so many of us come in with a caregiving and a fixing mindset. And it's really empowering for folks that we support. But it's also really empowering for personal relationships outside of work. So we get really unique feedback on that one from folks that take it.
And you offer a course in cultural humility that just sounds good to me. What is that about?
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at Montgomery County and we're a tremendously diverse county, right? And certainly within our workforce, we see that diversity. I've been in a class where we've got 13 people and 12 different countries represented within that group of 13 people. So we consider it a really essential skill that we're all able to recognize the lessons that our cultures have taught us, some of which are hard to recognize even within ourselves until someone points them out, and that then we're able to approach others with humility and understand that they may be coming from a different place, but we can learn to respect and understand and work with each other, even through those differences.
I like that what that course is all about. I like that you even say the word diversity. I like that I think it's important that we get to know each other, and we can do that better if we know our individual cultures. That's what makes America great, I think. You also offer a course in transformative communication. What do you mean by that?
So we mean, how can we communicate when the stakes are high? So when emotions are running high, when we're really not seeing eye to eye, those can be some of the scariest situations to communicate in, but they are also the situations where we really have a chance to make a change in our relationships with each other. And we don't always come, in fact, I'd argue none of us come born with the skills to do that naturally. When our emotions run high, we're less logical, we're not as good at reasoning, we're not as good at seeing other people's perspectives. So that course really aims to equip people with some skills to say, okay, instead of running from this conversation that maybe I feel a little bit frightened of or a little bit angry about, I'm going to choose to see it as a moment for transformation. And I know that I have the skills to have that conversation.
That's very important. Are there certifications offered for some of the classes? I think you said CPR. I think that would be a certification class?
Yeah, so CPR first aid results in a 2-year certification. The MANT system classes result in 1-year certifications. We also offer DSP2, which we developed in partnership with the Maryland DSP Consortium. That offers kind of a lifetime certification showing that you as a direct support professional, which is what DSP stands for, you've achieved a higher level of skill.
And these are certifications required by the state in order to practice?
CPR, first aid, and MANT are, and so is the certified medication technician class. Those are required by the state. DSP2 is not, but it's a really powerful and important program.
Tell me a little bit about you. What brought you to Jubilee? What's your background?
Sure. So I'm a former MCPS teacher, actually. So when I left the teaching profession, it was really important to me to continue giving back to this community. And so when I found Jubilee, I was really excited that it was an organization that was still dedicated to the Montgomery County community and to serving a vulnerable population within that. And it's extra meaningful for me because my younger brother has developmental disabilities. So it was just the perfect marriage of my previous career and something that I was already passionate about.
Awesome. How many people are on the Academy team?
There are 5 of us.
Okay.
I'm very privileged to get to work with all of them.
Awesome. And what are the goals of the Academy? Are there mechanisms in place? I know you're young, you haven't been there that long, but are there mechanisms in place to determine whether the Academy is meeting its goals?
Absolutely. Our goal is to make sure that high quality workforce development is available to everyone within our field. And one of the ways that we're already tracking that we've been tracking from day one, is we're keeping a record of everyone who's ever taken one of our classes. We're keeping a record of how many organizations have we reached. And then with time, we'd really love to look back at retention and outcomes so that we can see, are we improving the quality of service in Montgomery County? Are people, when they feel more highly skilled, we know they're more likely to stay with their jobs. So are we seeing that happen where folks that take Academy classes are more likely to stick with their jobs and provide that quality service?
Great. And finally, how can someone sign up for the courses?
We have a wonderful website. It should be jubileemd.org/academy. I know for sure if you go to jubileemd.org, it's very easy to find us in the header right there. So you can see the full list of our classes, you can see a calendar, and there's a registration page where you can register right on there.
Do you have a limit to the amount of people in a class?
Yes, yeah, okay. So it definitely classes fill up, so definitely make sure you get in there and register ahead of time.
And are there any prerequisites to taking any of the courses?
It depends on the class. So I would say the seminar classes, so Coach Approach, Cultural Humility, Transformative Communication, there is no barrier to entry for any of those classes. We've actually even had a few people from outside the intellectual and developmental disabilities world come and take classes like that, which is really exciting. So those have no prereqs. If you want to come take them, check out our website, come take them.
Awesome. Melanie, thank you so much for being here on Solutions and for the work that you do. It's very important.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Again, I'd like to thank Steve Keener, Executive Director, and Melanie Moore, Academy Program Director at Jubilee Association of Maryland, for being my guests on this episode of Solutions. If you'd like more information about Jubilee, you can visit their website at jubileemd.org, or you can email them at info@jubileemd.org. And you can also connect with them on their social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm Cheryl Hawkins. Thanks for watching, and please join us next time for more Solutions.